What an interesting way to kick off the show. Welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports. And today it is Hooters, Denver Athletic Club, and who else was it? It's new. We're in the new stage. Ford. I am your host Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready to discuss the Denver Nuggets and all the stuff that is currently happening around Denver that is getting very, very interesting. The trade deadline, of course, is in about 48 hours, 49 hours time. I believe it's 1 p.m. Mountain on Thursday is when the actual timing for the trade deadline is. But we just got some news right before the show. Jaren Jackson Jr. being traded in division to the Utah Jazz. That's a weird move. We'll break that down in just a little bit. Obviously, I was thinking I was going to talk about James Harden today, Giannis Antetokounmpo today, the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll talk about those guys in the first and second segments, along with some Nuggets discussion. And then Christian Braun on his way back to the Nuggets, who play tonight against the the Detroit Pistons. Tomorrow they play the New York Knicks. Gonna be a fascinating 5 games before the All-Star break for Denver, where they've just got to survive. They just got to get through it, and we'll break it all down very shortly. But first, we got to talk about the trade that just happened. Jaren Jackson Jr. I mean, holy cow, he's a very talented player who I think is a little overrated, if I'm being honest. But when you put him into a different situation, into a little bit of a different environment where he's not going to have to rebound as much, where there's other guys that can really take some pressure off of him. Memphis has been in a situation where obviously they've faltered with the Ja Morant situation, but they proactively traded Jaren Jackson Jr. on top of that. And now Desmond Bane is gone. Jaren Jackson Jr. is gone. Looks like Ja Morant is going to be next. It seems to me like Memphis is fully gearing up for a rebuild and have decided we're going to go. We are going to go at this point, and I'm very curious to see what ultimately happens with Ja and the direction that Memphis goes. They deserve good things to happen to them. I think they've had it very rough as a fan base over the course of their entire tenure, in my mind. But I do think that this writing was on the wall and that their current core not very good, especially after the entire situation with Ja in Denver. So things have taken a turn for the worse for them, but now they get to really start to reset and build around some of the young guys that they have. They added 3 future first-round picks, which should be pretty good. I don't know if they're going to be great, but should be pretty good. But the real assets are going to come from their own picks, I think, as well as the Orlando picks that they added and some of those other bits of draft capital. So they're gearing up, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But for Utah, a little bit of an interesting move. Obviously, they have Lauri Markkanen already, and that's like those guys are skilled enough that they should be able to play next to each other, whether Lauri's at the 3, Jaren Jackson's at the 4, and they have an actual center, or Lauri Markkanen plays the 4, Jaren Jackson slides to the 5, and they play very skilled, very offensive-centric basketball with Jaren Jackson Jr. as a really good rim protector. They'd have some rebounding issues for sure, but they've got some versatility, and it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. Obviously, they are not in position right now to compete, but Utah has wanted to do this for a long time, where they add a veteran, they use some of the resources that they acquired from the Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell trades back in the day. They've been floundering for a long time. They've wanted to go get Drew Holiday. They've wanted to go get other top-level point guards. Keontae George has developed into a really good point guard for them, so I don't think they needed to go the point guard route. I thought that they would go with more of a wing, but maybe those guys weren't super available. So they decided, let's go get somebody like Jaren Jackson Jr., who is available. Like they have clearly been canvassing the league for a long time, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is somebody who's young enough that he can develop with their group if they so choose. If not, they could always flip him. They could flip Markkanen. They could be in a different place in the future. But Walker Kessler's on the pine for them. He's injured. He's somebody that I know that they're going to want to bring back and will probably give a pretty big contract to in restricted free agency this offseason. But I do think that they are still a young team that has a pretty strong future, and they're going to add another top 10 pick in all likelihood in this draft. And they still have assets. They still have upside. They are a team to watch for sure. So we'll be very curious to see what happens there. But how it affects the Nuggets from a Nuggets perspective, if you guys remember, Utah was one of the teams I've been talking about in terms of they have cap space. They are a team that Denver could send one of their contracts to help get under the luxury tax, to help free up contracts to sign and money to sign Spencer Jones. That is not a thing anymore. They vaporized their cap space. They don't really have any flexibility at all. I actually tried to put this trade into the trade machine. It pushes them over the cap, which would thereby make it illegal. So I'm not sure. Like, I think the deal as it was presented by Shams Charania earlier today is still stuff that they have to work out from a financial perspective. I would guess one of the guys that was moved gets moved to a third team. So we'll see what happens here, but does seem to me like the Jazz are now off the table in terms of a team that the Nuggets can send somebody like Hunter Tyson to or Zeke Naji to in order to get under the tax. So that takes one of those teams off of the table, which leaves only Brooklyn. And so Denver's going to have a little bit more of a difficult time now in terms of figuring out who to trade with. Now, maybe the Grizzlies actually become a team that they could do such a deal with. We'll have to see what happens, but I do think that Denver's got some concerns that they have to get to if they actually want to be able to add Spencer Jones into the mix, and they're very focused on being under the tax. So we'll see what happens with them. But the main topic that I wanted to get to on this show was the Giannis and the Harden stuff. It is very clear to me, and looks like we've got a Cavs fan in here. You're about to get you're about to get very crazy in terms of what is actually happening on the trade market right now. So I think you're in a situation as a Cavs fan where, I mean, if you want to acquire James Harden, then you might be able to get him. Pretty clearly, this is something that is moving very fast. If you haven't seen, last night, James Harden and the Clippers, apparently it got to a head over the course of these last couple of days where Harden was asking for an extension, wanted the security, wanted something that he could tie into for his future contracts. He's been a guy that has taken a lot of 1-year deals, 2-year deals, as opposed to getting a 5-year max, a 4-year max, or anything like that. And because of that, he is always constantly in the news in terms of contracts and things of that nature. Good Lord, they're going off in the group chat. I think that Denver at this stage is really not Denver. I'm sorry. I got distracted. Harden and the Clippers at this stage are at two different points. Like, clearly they all want to win. Clearly they all want to be in a position. I don't think this was about competitiveness or anything like that. It's just that the Clippers want to keep the long-term view and understand that they need to maintain their financial flexibility. So they're not offering a contract. They are, or at least not something that goes longer than next year, which is something that Harden does not necessarily want. He wants the flexibility. He wants the security, not the flexibility. And so Harden is now, like, once you do that, Harden's now looking for options. He's looking for a team that will pay him and will give him the security that he's looking for. I mean, he was a borderline all-star this year. So I think he has earned that right with the way that he has played to at least develop some sort of security there. Now, the Cavs are in this situation as a team where, yes, they have turned some things around. Yes, they have figured some stuff out around Mitchell. Jared Allen just had a 40-point game. Like, they are slowly becoming the team that I thought that they would be at the beginning of the season. I thought that they would win 60 games. They're not going to win 60 games, but they are probably going to be pretty good for the rest of the way. But the one thing that's been holding them back is the fact that Darius Garland is not out there. He's not healthy. He's been dealing with a whole bunch of injuries. I think it's a toe injury that he's had right now. And he's been a liability for them in terms of this season. He hasn't played a lot of games, and Donovan Mitchell's been creating a lot by himself. Jalen Tyson has really stepped in as a creator, but he's still so young, and they are still like at that stage where they probably can't wait for his development fully. Very similar to the Peyton Watson situation, by the way. And so they're looking for another guy. They're looking for another player that can help create. Evan Mobley has not done that in terms of his development, turning into, like, people want to talk about him like Giannis. He's not quite turned into that in terms of being a playmaker, in terms of being a full-on creator. And then Jared Allen is a true rim-rolling center. So what do you need with those kinds of guys? You need another guy who could really set the table. Garland was that. Garland is that when he's healthy, but he's not healthy. And so they got to get somebody. If they really want to win a championship this year, I can understand why they want to make this deal. I'm not sure that it's actually going to make things different, but the writing was kind of on the wall for Garland when they traded DeAndre Hunter for Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. Ellis is more of an off-ball guard, like he's going to space the floor and play defense. Dennis Schroeder is a lower tier creator, but is somebody that could potentially help their bench, but he's not a starter. So they're looking for somebody that can really help with the creation in the starting unit, and who better than James Harden if he's available. So will be interesting to see what happens here, but it does seem like a Harden for Garland swap is the base for both of those teams. Garland is good enough and talented enough that I think it makes sense for the Clippers to do, and then they could kind of kick the can down the road on what they want to do with their future and their cap space and things like that. But Garland just turned 26. It's not like he can't turn this thing around to be an all-star caliber player for the rest of his career or somewhere to it. But it is a risk. So will be interesting to see. The thing is that they also are at risk of just losing Harden for nothing. So like, there, you want to get somebody, you want to get something, especially while Kawhi Leonard is playing like this, and they have a team that is built for now. They don't have a team that's built for the future. So you want a creator in there that can really help Kawhi Leonard. Garland, in theory, could do that, but I'm very curious what the health situation looks like there. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating. This is a weird situation for everybody involved. I think that from a Nuggets perspective, there's not a ton here where Denver can get involved unless the Cavs are looking to reroute Lonzo Ball's contract. Like, Lonzo Ball is somebody that I think Denver could acquire because he is an expiring deal for about $10 million. Could Denver send out Zeke Naji as part of that deal and maybe attach a first-round pick swap or a second-round pick and try to get involved there? Yes, they could. Whether it actually happens or not remains to be seen, but I do think that that's something that the Nuggets can and should consider. Get a little bit aggressive, try to get off of Zeke Naji's next 2 years of his contract and be able to waive Lonzo Ball in that situation is something creative and forward-thinking that the Nuggets should probably do. But we'll figure it out. We'll just have to see. Okay. Let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to discuss some of the rest of the things that Denver can accomplish in the trade market. Will be very interesting to see what they do. But overall, it's going to be fascinating to see how this goes. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. But first, just want to make sure that you guys know this podcast presented by Ford, your Colorado Ford dealers. Keep up with the latest Nuggets news, Pickaxe and Roll, and much more with the Mile High Sports app, driven by Ford. Just keep and search Mile High Sports in your app store. Did you know that we have a mobile app? Ford is the one that is sponsoring that app, and they do a great job. You can find all of my articles there. You can find a whole bunch of Broncos and Nuggets articles and Avalanche articles. Colleen Wolf's been really good. with covering the Avs. She does a great job. So lots of great content on the Mile High Sports app, presented by Colorado Ford Dealers. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll.
At Hooters, you can watch the tournament with your buddies. All your buddies. Like the ones with ice-cold beer. And one-of-a-kind wings that are nothing but net. You know, buddies you won't have to fight for the remote. Buddies who know a thing or two about basketball. And the fans who live for it.
Where else are you gonna get all this?
Hooters, your official hangout for game day.
Shout out to the Hooters girls. Next up here on Pickaxe and Roll, we are going to discuss the Denver Nuggets and the trade deadline that is upcoming. There's a lot of interesting concerns that are facing Denver right now. There's a lot of pressure, I think, from Nuggets fans, especially after that Thunder game, where you see the Thunder and they're really good, they're really talented, and there's two schools of thought here. Denver, of course, was missing 3 starters. They have guys in Christian Braun, Cam Johnson, and Aaron Gordon. Probably would have helped in terms of being able to match up with OKC. Denver's identity is still so up in the air to me, because while I think that Denver can compete with OKC, they're not going to be able to do it if they don't have the ability to switch and guard and defend and make sure that they're grabbing the offensive rebounds and executing really well when Nikola Jokic is getting doubled and they're rotating 3 bodies over there, and you need somebody else who can create off the dribble, and Cam Johnson can really help do that. Aaron Gordon obviously did that in the OKC series really well. Like, there's just so much up in the air to me in terms of what the Nuggets are going to be. And it's why I don't think they're going to make any significant moves. There's things that we've discussed already, like the Peyton Watson situation and his growth, his development is obviously not thrown a wrench, but it's changed, I think, what you think the Nuggets could possibly do at the trade deadline. I'll tell you what I thought Denver was going to do before the season, before any minutes were played. I thought that with Christian Braun getting an extension, with Peyton Watson not getting an extension, I thought that the Nuggets would shop around Peyton Watson's deal, would try to pair it with Zeke Naji. Maybe that's how they get under the luxury tax going forward. Maybe they try to get an expiring deal, somebody that could fill in as a backup small forward, backup power forward, and really give them a complete roster where you've got Bruce Brown, you've got Tim Hardaway, you've got Jonas Valanciunas, and then you get this guy, whoever it is, and that's what you're hoping for. That's what you're doing. You get a 9-man rotation heading into the playoffs, maybe some flexibility on the edges, but that's what I thought was going to happen. Now you've got a true starting caliber player in Peyton Watson, and he has been so good, and he's potentially going to command so much money, deservedly so, because of the way that he has played. Let me just pull up Peyton Watson's per game stats here, just so that people can fully appreciate what is going on. And this is including like a lot of times where he just wasn't a major factor for Denver at the beginning of the year. Peyton Watson has officially crossed the 15 point per game threshold. He's at 15 points, 4.9 rebounds, 2.0 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, shooting 50% from the field, nearly 43% from 3 with the way that he is shooting, and 72% from the line. He has been so good and has stepped up in such a significant way with the skill development, stuff that, like, I thought that it was eventually going to be there, like maybe later in his career as he was given more of an opportunity. Well, he's been given the opportunity now because of Denver's injuries, and he's ran with it so hard. So it is a massive credit to him. It is a massive credit to player development, but really just to Peyton Watson and the way that he has capitalized on this moment, that Denver's trade deadline plans have changed. I do think that this was not something that they were thinking about, and now they have to. Now they really have to think about it. He's changed what their strategy is. Unless something crazy happens, and I mean crazy, they will not trade Peyton Watson. They will not try to use him as an upgrade piece. They'll not try to get somebody else that's a backup small forward, a backup power forward. Like that's out of the question. That's not what they need to do. He is good enough now. Like they've got 6 starting caliber players on their team, and Tim Hardaway Jr., who was a starting caliber guy for much of the first half of the season, has slowed down a little bit, but like still very, very good. So they've got a really good mix here. And Spencer Jones, and what he has done, he's also stepped up and quite literally been a starter for them for about 35 games out of 50. So they got to figure out what Spencer Jones's contract is going to be. He has one more day, one more game on his contract. And I'm very curious to see what ultimately happens there. Okay. Oh, God. Just in Chicago, Minnesota, and Detroit. Wow. Okay, what is going on? We're now getting a deal. We're now getting deals. Chicago, Minnesota, and Detroit have agreed to a multi-team deal that sends Jaden Ivey and Mike Conley to the Bulls and Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric to the Pistons. Detroit also receives a 2026 first-round protected swap from Minnesota. So is this just a Minnesota salary dump? Is that what this is? Who's going to Minnesota in this deal? What is going on? Okay, Mike Conley leaves and goes to Minnesota, or goes from Minnesota to Chicago, and I'm just like not sure what's going to happen here. There's a lot. This is clearly a good time to go live. What are the Wolves actually getting from this? Like, is this just a pure salary dump that they are sending to here? Holy cow. Okay, well, so this is the going rate. Clearly, this is the going rate. A 2026 first round protected swap from Minnesota. So basically what that means is that Minnesota, if they are the 20th overall pick, like let's say it's top 20 protected, or maybe it's lotto protected or something like that, then Minnesota sending to Detroit a 2026 first round protected swap. So Detroit can move up 10 spots if they are the 29th team, if they're the 29th pick and Minnesota's the 20th pick, then they can move up 9 spots or something like that in the draft by giving up Jaden Ivey. Kevin Huerter is going to the Pistons, though. Dario Saric is going to the Pistons. So, wow. Interesting move. Interesting deal. There's still things that have to be worked out here, but like, wow, this is a very fascinating breakdown. Okay. Already getting waylaid. Yeah. And J.K. Waller says Dario Saric getting passed around like a blunt. 100%. Denver was first. Denver was first on that draw. So things are moving. Things are starting to get moving here. There was a big delay, a big holdup because of the Giannis situation, which I guess I didn't really talk about either. Giannis, I think there's a chance, and to the Cleveland fan that I was talking to before, there's a chance that Cleveland ends up with Giannis and James Harden. I don't think it's going to happen. Like they have to send out Jared Allen in order to do that. They have to find other salary that makes sense in order to do that. But they are trying to build around Donovan Mitchell. They're trying to keep Evan Mobley in that situation. So could they get James Harden, Evan Mobley, Giannis, and Donovan Mitchell? Probably not. So you probably have to give up Evan Mobley in that situation, but that's not something the Cavs want to do. But that's what they're going to try to do in this situation. So we'll see what happens. But Giannis and like Jaren Jackson Jr. already moved to Utah. There is also a chance that Giannis moves to Portland. Portland has been really trying to get him over the, like, heard this through the grapevine. Giannis is trying, like I'm not sure how much of an interest he actually has in being in Portland, but Dame is in Portland now, rehabbing from his torn Achilles. Portland has various assets that they've accumulated, young players that they've accumulated. They would try to hold on to Deni Avdija, I believe. So you get Deni Avdija, Giannis. Not sure if they keep Donovan Clingan in that situation, but if they have Donovan Clingan, they might be able to keep him. Probably send out Jeremy Grant, Tumani Camara, and some other guys to make up the salary difference. But there is a not unrealistic situation where the Northwest Division has Jokic, Shea, Giannis, Anthony Edwards, and then both of Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. in there, along with Keontae George, who has really started to develop. So Northwest Division is starting to get a little crazy. And that is not a scary proposition, because Denver's not like they only play the Northwest Division 4 times a year, unless there is a rescheduling of some sort for the 82 game, or 81st and 82nd games after the NBA Cup. But my God, it's been pretty crazy. And having to deal with those guys, as opposed to Giannis staying in the East or Jaren Jackson Jr. getting traded East, everything just seems to be concentrated into the Western Conference over and over and over again. It's a lot. It is a lot for Denver to have to deal with. And it sucks because I think about this a lot. You guys remember who LeBron James had to go through in the Eastern Conference in order to get to the NBA Finals 10 straight times in a row? Yeah, it was the 2015 Atlanta Hawks, the Indiana Pacers that were incredibly dysfunctional, the Chicago Bulls that broke down physically. It was the Toronto Raptors who had a mental barrier against LeBron James. They're these flawed teams. Boston, who were just getting to their good self when they drafted Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in 2016 and 17, but those guys were still too young before LeBron actually moved over to the West. So they were flawed. All of these teams were flawed when they're facing the Cavs. And Jokic and the Nuggets have had to go through absolute hell in order to do this. They've had to face Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors at the beginning, James Harden, Chris Paul, and the Houston Rockets in the early portions. For a while, Utah was very, very good until they decided to blow it up. And now, it's OKC, it's Minnesota, it's every team that has really started to step up. It always feels like there is a new power that is rising in the Western Conference. And there's never been that feeling in the East. It always feels like the talent is just so concentrated in the West. Oh, and Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs are also lurking. It's just ridiculous. And so conferences are as imbalanced as they really have ever been. And the fact that Giannis could actually get traded west is crazy. There's still a possibility that he goes to Minnesota. Maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe this is a precursor with the Conley trade. Maybe they're literally trying to free up cap space and get out of the second apron. Actually, that's the math that I got to check on. Let's go check on that real quick, because holy cow. Holy cow. That is a good question. Let's go to the apron tracker here and see where the Minnesota Timberwolves are at now, because that to me is the big one. If they get out of the second apron, because I think that they were in it. So I want to confirm that. If you're in the second apron, you cannot aggregate contracts. That's the thing. Minnesota is now at 191 million. Were they there before? Let's check on it. Actually, this probably is updated, so we gotta You got to figure this thing out. Sorry, Spot Track is probably running very slow, in part because everybody's now going and doing what I am doing, trying to figure out what this trade does for the Minnesota cap sheet. I think they're going to try to get Giannis too. Like, it's pretty clear that this is a precursor move of some kind. Like, they don't give up a swap like that for nothing. So, holy cow, it's gonna be very, very interesting. What a time! What a time! I thought that this trade deadline was actually going to be pretty flawed. Okay, Spot Track is just giving me a spinning ring of death. So we are going to wait. Oh no, there we go. Yes, so they were at. Yeah, they were pretty close to the second apron. They are now out of the second apron. They're just into the first apron at this point. But this gives them the flexibility that they can aggregate. Actually, they can aggregate, but they cannot send out more, or they cannot receive more in contracts, in money coming back to them. That's the rule between the first apron and second apron. They can aggregate contracts, but they have to stay under the amount that they give or that they retain. So this is tough. It's like the second apron, the first apron stuff. Anybody that can't follow the cap stuff, I understand, because it is very confusing. But what this effectively does is that do they pair Julius Randle's contract and Naz Reid's contract and Rob Dillingham and Juan Beringer? Sorry, I cannot pronounce the French center's name. They've got some things that they could do, but they're going to try to loop in some extra stuff in order to make a run at Giannis. That's the only reason I can think of why they're doing this at this point right now. So it'll be very interesting to see. I'm very, very curious how this goes. Okay, let's take another break. When we come back, we are going to discuss Denver and their situation. I kind of shifted right over the Nuggets cap situation. I'll go over that at the beginning of the next segment. And then we'll talk about Christian Braun coming back, because that is a big bit of news and something that I'm very much looking forward to. Should be fun. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. But first, the Denver Athletic Club. Are you looking for the perfect place to work, play, exercise, and socialize? Look no further than the DAC, the Denver Athletic Club, right in the heart of downtown Denver. As a DAC member, you'll enjoy top-notch amenities like a full fitness center, licensed childcare center, which it's always tough if you have kids and you're trying to be healthy, you're trying to work out, you're trying to do right by you. The childcare center is great. Spa, massages, Pilates, a golf simulator, and more. But what truly sets the DAC apart is a vibrant community. It's member-owned, and the club, it's all about you, offering year-round social events, co-working, dining, and fun for the entire family. The Denver Athletic Club is truly a club for your whole life. Learn more about the DAC at denverathletic.cc today. Yes, web address is denverathletic.cc, not .com. Don't make that mistake. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right. Final segment, Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Christian Braun. Christian Braun is coming back, whether it happens now or very much in the future, or like in the near future. I think with Denver on the back-to-back on Tuesday night and Wednesday night, I think he will play in one of those games. And he was listed as doubtful on Sunday. The Nuggets are slowly still trying to ramp him back up and make sure that he is all ready to go. I think that he'll play in one of those games. He'll sit in the other, and then he'll play the final 3 games before the All-Star break. And that is a good situation to be in. You want to see Christian Braun get back. You want to see, like, as long as he's fully healthy and as long as he's ready to go, like, Denver's in this situation now where they still need defense. They still, especially with Jokic back, and they're having to find some different, more creative ways to figure some stuff out on the defensive end. They still need A lot of stuff. By the way, apparently Giannis just tweeted and confirmed the created cap space for the Wolves is for Giannis. So great. Glad to see that I wasn't fully off base with that. Yeah, this is going to be a very, very interesting situation. Something to monitor going forward. But Christian Braun coming back is a good thing. And I know that Nuggets fans are a little bit frustrated with him and in a situation where, because of Peyton Watson's growth, because of the injury that Christian had, because Christian struggled before he went down, like there's a lot of pressure on Christian Braun. He's thinking about a lot. He's trying to get back, and he did get the contract, so at least that's not something that he has to worry about. But in terms of gaining that confidence back and putting himself into a situation where he is like back to normal and back to his normal self, it's difficult to have the confidence when you're feeling like you can't jump that high, when you're not changing direction as quickly as you would normally do. Whenever you push off on that foot, on that ankle, it's giving you some trouble. So hopefully in this situation now, that's not the case. Like hopefully the Nuggets have given him enough time that he can fully heal and can start getting back to a place where he's not thinking about how his body is going to respond and is instead thinking about how to play the basketball game, how to help the team win in the best way possible. And so Denver's got a lot of things to worry about there, to think about there, but one of them I think is not going to be Christian starting. I do not expect Christian Braun to start when he comes back. I don't know what's actually going to happen with the lineup. I think so. Jalen Pickett has been starting next to Jamal Murray over the course of these last few games. He's actually been pretty consistent over the course of this last few. Let's check and actually see how many games has Jalen Pickett started. Jalen Pickett started 17 of the games that he has played. He's played 35 out of the 50. And he's started in 17 of them. So this has been the go-to. And what Denver's basically done is played Jalen Pickett for the first and like beginning of the first and third quarter, and then have had other guys that they have step in at the shooting guard and small forward positions, with Jamal Murray transitioning back to point guard in a lot of that time. I don't think that they should continue to do that. I think that they should, if anything, bring Jalen Pickett off the bench and start Bruce Brown. But they've wanted to have Bruce Brown off the bench next to Tim Hardaway Jr., kind of keeping him in that role. And so the logical thing to me is eventually you'll have Murray, Christian Braun, Spencer Jones, Peyton Watson, flip those guys, and Jokic. And then Cam Johnson comes back at some point. He was listed as out for this game. I do think that he'll be back before the All-Star break too, but it does seem to me like he's obviously a factor in what the Nuggets are going to do as well. So Denver's got questions, like especially because Spencer Jones has played as well as he has. Like he's averaged only 24 minutes a night, but he started 33 games. So like they have a lot of guys that can be really, really helpful in these situations and help Christian Braun out so that he doesn't feel like he has to do everything. But there's not a lot of pressure to me to start him immediately. Like I, again, would start Bruce Brown with Christian Braun coming back and then flip those guys in the rotation at some point. I think you go Murray, Bruce Brown, Peyton Watson, Spencer Jones, Nikola Jokic. And for the time being, you have Jalen Pickett, Tim Hardaway Jr., Christian Braun. Who else? Who else am I missing? And that's really it. You have those guys. And then, maybe Julian Strawther. Julian Strawther can also play and kind of rotate in with what the Nuggets are doing. And then Valanciunas. And then you've got an actual 10-man rotation. When Cam Johnson comes back, you probably move him into the starting lineup at some point and move out Spencer Jones. Or you move out Jalen Pickett and you feel like, or Bruce Brown, and you feel okay with that. But Denver's got some questions. They've got a lot of guys that can and should play. You're probably going to have to get a little bit more creative in this case. But over the course of these next 5 games, the hope is that Christian Braun plays in 4 of them and starts to get some good trends in the right direction for the post All-Star break. He strings together a couple of games, gets his feet under him a little bit, then takes another break for a week, and then the Nuggets are ready to go post All-Star break with Cam Johnson and Christian Braun back in the starting lineup next to Peyton Watson, Jamal Murray, and Nikola Jokic. Spencer Jones hopefully is still eligible at that point, has a full-time contract at that point, so it's not something to think about. But it's going to be very, very interesting for what happens here. Triple Double says, Ryan, hear me out. Start Murray, Watson, and Braun with Gordon and Jokic when Gordon comes back. Maybe, but the thing that I think people need to remember is that Aaron Gordon's not going to be back until at least like March 1st. And that's game 61, game 62 of the season. More likely, he probably comes back around March 8th, and it might even take him up until like March 15th for him to be back. And so it's going to be anywhere from about 15 to 20, maybe 13 to 20 games that Aaron Gordon is going to be healthy for at the end of the season. I think that there's actually a justification for bringing Gordon off the bench for a while when he comes back and keeping everything kind of regular with some other guys. So Denver's got questions. They've got questions with their rotation to figure out. I'm really curious because, I don't think you could put Peyton Watson back in the box. The way that he has played since Jokic went down, we're just going to go to the numbers and look at the game logs and really try to separate this as much as possible. The game after Jokic went down, Peyton Watson has averaged since then 22.5 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2.8 assists, 1 steal, 1.4 blocks, 46% from three. He's playing really good basketball. The Nuggets are winning his minutes, at least mostly during that stretch. And the way that he has played, I just don't think that you can go back as consistently as many other people seem to think without alienating Peyton Watson during this stretch. The way that he was talking after Sunday's loss, he really thinks that he's on that star trajectory, and I do not think that going back to the bench lines up with that. So Denver's got some things, and if Watson's stardom and desired stardom gets in the way of that, things are going to get really interesting in the Nuggets locker room, I think. And with David Adelman, I hope that they can all smooth it out and everybody can find common ground in this situation. But over the course of these final 5 games, Peyton Watson will start all of them, I'm almost certain. But post All-Star break, once Aaron Gordon comes back, once Denver has a in theory, fully healthy rotation, they've got 6 starters. Do they keep Christian Braun on the bench? Do they move Cam Johnson to the bench? Do they keep Aaron Gordon on the bench, who has had some injuries and probably needs to have his minutes lowered overall? Maybe. Christian Braun, you could say the same thing with him coming back from a more significant injury than Aaron. I think that that's pretty clear. He's grade 2, borderline grade 3 ankle sprain with some ligament damage. So they've got some questions. They've got some things to figure out. And fortunately, right now at the pre-All-Star break portion of the schedule, they're just trying to survive. They don't have to think about that as much. This is just about getting Christian Braun back on the court and trying to get him comfortable again. That is not always going to be the case. At some point, these guys are all going to want to start. They're going to really try to gear up to win. And winning is going to have to blend well with agendas and roles. And I'm not entirely sure that it's going to do it in a perfectly healthy way. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But tonight, it looks like Christian has a really good chance to come back. He'll probably play about 15 to 20 minutes off the bench, somewhere in that general range. I would expect him to be a pretty lower tier contributor in terms of mostly just going to be out there trying to get some movement going, trying to help set up Tim Hardaway Jr. and some of the other guys off the bench. But it'll be fascinating. I want to see what he looks like on the fast break. I want to see what he looks like defensively. And maybe Denver can eke out a win against this Detroit team that is really, really good. All right. Folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports. Thank you to the sponsors for this video. Always looking forward to this interesting week where Denver is now at the epicenter of a lot of trade talk. Maybe they're not the ones that are in it, but could they get involved? We'll just have to see. Everybody, thank you so much. I will be back tomorrow after Detroit, after the Detroit game, and then New York game on Wednesday night. The trade deadline is on Thursday. Holy cow, is it really busy? We're trying to make it work. Everybody, have a good day. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.